I refuse to give up when it comes to HBAR. $3, that's still my price target for this bull run, even though that's not financial advice. A lot of people like to say that, yeah, HBAR did very well, but then now it's having a pretty big pullback. It's game over. It's done. Well, I disagree. A breather is only normal, in my opinion. It's like someone running a marathon. They're not going to sprint the whole way through, at least in my perspective. There's going to be some times to chill, if that makes sense. And when it comes to this, it's no different. When things pump up by that much in such a relatively short amount of time, pullbacks, they're bound to happen. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the future is bad, because I still think there's a ways to go here. I think the bull run is far from over. I mean, even if we take a look at it historically speaking, we do know that altcoins, usually as a worst case scenario, they typically peak around a year and a half after a Bitcoin halving event. Now, when is a year and a half after the last Bitcoin halving event? If we do that math, right, that's basically around October this year, because the last Bitcoin halving event happened back in April of 2024. So again, I think there's still ways to go. Bitcoin hasn't reached 150,000. It hasn't reached 200,000 and maybe even beyond. It hasn't done that, right? So if let's say it hasn't done that, I don't get why this bull run is over, and I don't get why the best days are behind HBAR, if that makes sense. I still think that better days are ahead because people care about perceived adoption. Hedera doesn't have the best adoption, but you know what? It has good perceived adoption, in my opinion at least, because it fits the narrative. People nowadays, they want to look for something innovative, something revolutionary, and something that's different. And sometimes they want to look for something that is beyond just using traditional blockchain technology. And what other better project, in my opinion, hypothetically, in my opinion, other than Hedera? Because think about this. Hedera Hashgraph, it doesn't use traditional blockchain technology. Instead, it uses something called a DAG, which is a directed acyclic graph. The reason why this is a lot better, in my opinion, than quote-unquote traditional blockchain technology is because it has improved data storage, typically. Also, usually, it's a lot faster, typically a lot more scalable, consumes a lot less energy too, in a lot of cases. I mean, per transaction on average, Hedera actually consumes less energy than something like Ethereum, Solana. You take a look at the BNB chain. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. This is how amazing it is. Now, granted, it doesn't have the best adoption. I totally understand that. But again, people usually care about the narrative, and this does have a good narrative, in my opinion. Just think about when blockchain technology first popped up. I don't think people were too adamant about it, right? I don't think they were too excited because I think in some people's eyes, at least, when they take a look at something very revolutionary, in some cases, they may be like, oh yeah, that's a little bit too much. So when it comes to Hedera Hashgraph, I totally understand why that may kind of be the case, but once that momentum really kicks back in a massive way, this is going to be massive. I get it. Meme coins are going to be massive. I totally understand that. But it doesn't mean that this won't hypothetically be massive too. And if we think about it this logically, Hedera, the amazing thing about it is that its native services can reliably scale up to 10,000 transactions per second and even beyond. That's very fantastic. Not to mention, it has a governing council when it comes to Hedera that is pretty much unrivaled, in my opinion. I mean, really, where's the competition here? The governing council includes Google. I mean, wow, that's amazing, right? Take a look at, for instance, LG. You take a look at Mondelez. Now, Mondelez, their brands include something like the Cliff, the Cliff Bar, right? Or I should say like Cliff. If someone's eaten that before, I think they'll know what I mean. Not to mention, you take a look at Oreo. I mean, we all know Oreo. So when you take a look at something like this, it has a governing council that impressive. Not to mention, another member of its governing council is Boeing. And yeah, you heard that right. I'm talking about like Boeing. So this is how amazing Hedera is. For as massive as it is, relatively speaking, because it's not a small project by any means, it's still relatively unknown because a lot of people still love Ethereum, BNB, they love Solana, they love Bitcoin, of course. But this kind of feels like something that could be massive. Again, it's not small by any means, but it hasn't reached that mainstream level of like a Solana, because usually when people think about good projects, let's say I ask the average person, right? I go up and say, hey, what are good projects? Of course, a lot of people, they know Bitcoin, but then usually they think about Ethereum, Solana, but then beyond that, they don't really know much, right? In some cases of other options. Hedera has the potential to be mainstream, but it's a matter of time hypothetically because it hasn't gone to showcase that yet. If let's say HBAR were to go to the price of $3 during this bull run, after this bull run is over, it could very well be one of these mainstream players. Only time will tell, but it could. Because again, First of all, going to the price of $3 isn't even that crazy. If it were to go to that price, considering current circulating supply, market cap would be around $125 billion. Not too crazy. BNB at one point reached over $100 billion in market cap, and it's not this revolutionary, let's face it. Not to mention, Dogecoin even reached over $80 billion in market cap back in 2021. I'm not saying that HBAR is going to have these record-breaking figures or something like that. Keep in mind, Ethereum back in 2021 reached a market cap of around $550 billion. I don't think this is too much to ask for. Yes, there's a lot of competition when it comes to layer 1 blockchains, but then this sort of sits on a league of its own. Yeah, it's very special. Now, keep in mind, $3 is around a 13x from here, which really isn't even that bad because when you think about it, considering how much HBAR has done, much like I predicted, of course, there's a pullback, but still, considering how much it has relatively done well in the grand scheme of things, doing an additional 13x doesn't seem like so bad in my opinion. It's not going to do these micro cap numbers of like a 1,000, 2,000x or whatever the case may be. But the way I take a look at it is that still, it's not that bad. Now, when you have over 600 million crypto owners, according to Crypto.com research currently, which we do, which is more than ever before in history, is this born going to be bad? I highly doubt that. It's just a waiting game though. It's like a game of patience. I totally understand that people usually, they just want to see things keep on pumping and pumping. And of course that'd be exciting. It's like a video game, right? But then that's not usually how it works. Typically there's going to be pullbacks along the way. There's going to be times when people leave, when people take profits, whatever the case may be. It's not usually going to be this straight shot up. And again, no matter what happens, I'm still going to be accumulating because anytime I do an income, I'm acquiring, I'm holding, I'm just waiting. That's it. I'm not going to be day trading or using leverage or swing trading. That's just not my vibe. It's not my style. That's not what I do. I like to keep things simple. I still haven't given up when it comes to Hedera. Hedera, again, it sits in this very unique niche where it virtually kind of has no competitors, which I think is very amazing. Now, not to mention its community is very passionate too. It feels very reminiscent, right? It feels very similar to like a Shiba Inu and Dogecoin community, like a meme coin type of community, but then at a smaller scale. But then the thing about it is this. Usually people are very passionate when it comes to these meme coin projects. Very rarely do we see it when it comes to these quote unquote serious projects, right? Take a look at, for instance, Avalanche, a very good project, very good layer 1 blockchain, but the community is not as passionate as like, something like Hedera or like even these meme coins. And it's kind of rare to see that actually when it comes to a serious project like this, because typically the fans, when it comes to a serious project, they may not be in some cases as vocal as like a meme coin. But then when it comes to Hedera, the fan base feels very fantastic. And then again, it's very amazing because it's not a meme coin. So when I take a look at this is such a no-brainer pick for me. I haven't given up on it. And when it comes to HBAR at the price of $3 during this born, I don't see why not. That wouldn't shock me whatsoever. And make sure to subscribe if you gain value from this video. Greatly appreciate it. It's been Lee the Captain. I'll catch you all on the next one. I'm a peace. Bye.